This is probably one of the least understood paintings in the entire Van Gogh Museum. Most people walk straight past this canvas without giving it a second look. It is easy to understand why. At first sight, it hardly resembles a painting at all. There is no sky here, no horizon, no face looking back at us. And yet, hidden within this confusing image is a piece of information that took researchers 130 years to uncover. A discovery that, once you know it, could completely transform the way you look at this canvas, and at Van Gogh himself. It was painted by Vincent van Gogh in July of 1890, during the final weeks of his life. Before we get to the discovery, we need to understand what we are actually looking at, because in this painting, it is not as simple as it sounds. What Van Gogh shows us is a steep bank of earth, seen from very close by. It is the kind of eroded slope you might find along a country road, where the soil has fallen away and left the roots of the trees exposed to the open air. Those roots twist across the entire surface of the canvas. Some of them curl upward like reaching arms. Others dig themselves stubbornly back into the ground. Notice how strange the colors are. The wood is painted in a type of blue that no tree has ever had. And then there is the framing. Van Gogh cut everything off at the edges. There is no beginning and no end to this scene, as if he simply carved a rectangle out of the world and decided that this fragment was enough. In 1890, this way of constructing an image was almost unheard of. It comes remarkably close to what we would today call abstract art, decades before abstraction officially existed. But if we look even more carefully, we notice something else, something easy to miss. In several places, between the brushstrokes, the raw canvas is still showing through. Certain sections were never completed. This painting is unfinished. Keep that detail in mind, because it will become important later in the story. To understand this work, we have to travel to a small village north of Paris called Auvers-sur-Oise. Van Gogh arrived there in May of 1890, after spending a year in the asylum of Saint-Rémy in the south of France. He took a modest attic room above a café, the Auberge Ravoux, and threw himself into his work with an intensity that is difficult to comprehend. In the 70 days he spent in Auvers, he completed around 75 paintings. That is more than one finished canvas every single day. Portraits, wheat fields, the village church, the gardens, the cottages. He painted everything the village had to offer. And then, on the evening of July 27th, everything stopped. Van Gogh stumbled back into the inn that night with a bullet wound in his chest. Now, if you were to ask almost anyone which painting Van Gogh made last, you would very likely receive the same answer: wheat field with crows. You probably know the image: a heavy, storm-dark sky pressing down on a golden field, a path that seems to lead nowhere, and a cloud of black crows rising into the air. I already created a detailed analysis of this painting on my channel. For generations, this canvas was presented as his final goodbye. There is only one problem with this story though. The evidence tells us it is wrong. When specialists reconstructed the chronology of those last weeks, using his letters and even the ripeness of the wheat in the fields, they concluded that wheat field with crows was made around July 10th. That is more than 2 weeks before his death. 2 weeks in which Van Gogh continued working, continued writing to his brother, and even placed a new order for paint. These are not the actions of a man who had already said goodbye. So the question becomes unavoidable. If the crows were not his final painting, what was? The first clue has existed all along, buried in a family letter. Andries Bonger, the brother-in-law of Theo van Gogh, recorded what he was told about Vincent's final day. And what he wrote down is astonishing. On the morning before the shooting, Vincent had gone out to paint, as he did every day. And the work he was making that morning was not dark at all. Bonger described the scene of undergrowth, full of sunlight and full of life. For over a century, historians debated which canvas he could have meant. But only one painting from those days matches the description, matches the style, and crucially, was left incomplete. The one you are looking at right now, an unfinished canvas to which he never got the chance to return. And yet, for all those years, this remained a theory, convincing but impossible to prove. Until the spring of 2020, when the missing piece of the puzzle appeared in the most unexpected place imaginable. During the lockdown of that year, a Dutch researcher named Wouter van der Veen was at home, browsing through his archive of historical images of Auvers-sur-Oise. Among them was an old postcard, printed around 1905, showing a completely ordinary village road called the Rue d'Aubigny. A man poses with his bicycle. Nothing about the image seems worth remembering, to be honest. But along the side of that road, there is a steep bank of earth. And out of that bank grow twisted, exposed tree roots. Van der Veen placed the postcard beside the painting, and the resemblance was impossible to deny. The same leaning trunk, the same tangle of roots, the same slope cut open in exactly the same way. He had found the precise spot where Van Gogh planted his easel on the last day he ever painted. Experts from the Van Gogh Museum traveled to the village and confirmed the identification. Part of the root formation is still there today. And here is the detail that makes this discovery so difficult to forget. That slope on the Rue d'Aubigny lies about 150 meters from the Auberge Ravoux. Van Gogh made his final painting within walking distance of the bed in which he would die 2 days later. He must have passed those roots every morning on his way to the fields, dozens of times. And on his last day, he stopped, looked at them, and decided they deserved the painting. Which brings us to the real question. Why roots? The answer may lie 8 years earlier. In 1882, long before Auvers, Van Gogh made a study of tree roots in The Hague. And in a letter to Theo, he explained exactly what he wanted that image to express. He wanted the roots to convey the struggle of life itself, something battered by storms, clinging to the earth, torn half loose, and yet refusing to let go. 8 years later, on the final morning he painted in his life, he chose that exact same subject again. And this is where the two versions of Van Gogh's ending stand directly opposed to each other. One version, the famous one, closes with black birds and a darkening sky, despair painted in its purest form. The other version, the one supported by the evidence, closes with sunlight falling on a roadside bank and with roots that hold on to the earth with everything they have. Was this painting a hidden farewell, a final meditation on his own struggle to keep holding on? Or was it simply a working canvas, interrupted halfway, proof that on his very last morning he was still planning a tomorrow? Two completely different readings, and both of them fit the same tangle of roots. Perhaps that is exactly why this overlooked painting deserves our attention more than almost any other, because it forces us to choose which Vincent van Gogh we believe in. I would love to hear in the comments which interpretation convinces you more, and whether you think an unfinished painting can still be a final statement. Thank you for watching until the end, and I will see you in the next video.